Welcome back, everybody. This is Bill Mean here. Today we're doing a channel update just to catch you up on some things that have been happening in the past, as well as to kind of explain myself a little bit for what we want to do here in the future. Uh, we have been doing some tower defense games for those of you that have been following along. You've been watching me play Kingdom Rush Vengeance, and I'm still planning on doing that. Fun game, and the reason for that in the past couple weeks is because my old computer has kind of been crapping out on me. Because of that, I've decided that I want to upgrade my system, and I've done so. So I'm going to show you what we have and kind of do a look, compare and contrast with the old build, as well as to put out a specific request. So for those of you that have followed this long and have listened this much, please listen to what I'm about to tell you. I'm continuing Pathfinder Kingmaker with the builds and Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous when it comes out, and all the other games that I've been touting as fun and interesting and the stuff that I want to do. That doesn't mean that that's all I will do. The reason I have you up on my Steam page is to show you that I have a variety of different interests in games. I mean, we have your tower defense games like your Kingdom Rush series. Hell, I have all four of them: Kingdom Rush Frontiers, Kingdom Rush Origins, and now Kingdom Rush Vengeance. I love myself some survival games like The Long Dark, where it's not really like a zombie-esque type game by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely fun. I like myself, of course, my D&D type games, so Pathfinder Kingmaker, or Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous when it comes out. Baldur's Gate 3 I've already purchased in advance. Pillars of Eternity, 2, not exactly my thing, but I tried part 2 anyway. Stuff like that, again, I'm definitely into, but that's not all of them out there, for example. And of course, there's other games that I like as well, like a city builders game like Banished, or base builder games like Oxygen Not Included. I have games where you have building your town or various cities as well as defending them. So Age of Empires, other games like that, like Command and Conquer series of games. Warlock Master of the Arcane, very similar in my opinion to things like Civilization. There's another set of amazing games where you can not only build your town, build buildings in the towns and upgrade them, and build units to explore the world and of course attack your bad guys. So again, a variety of games that I like. I do like the occasional shooter. While I have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, you'll notice I've not downloaded the multiplayer version of it. I do the standalone. And for those of you that will suggest games to me, feel free to suggest games like this, but only suggest ones where you can play by yourself. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to record other people playing the game. I feel bad for not being a good enough teammate for them because I'm busy talking to you guys or explaining stuff and not really putting my full attention on the game. So I don't want to impact their gameplay. And the other is I would also feel the need to tell them that, hey, I'm recording this, for my YouTube channel, just so you guys are aware. And I don't want to have them edit their, speech. I don't want to worry about them cursing or anything like that, or anything that would make them go, oh, I can't team with this guy because, again, I'm going to be, stank nasty or something, and I'll feel like I can't do that on his channel because it'll ruin his channel. Or maybe I'll get people that want to show off for the channel, which would irritate me to no end. So I don't want to do that kind of stuff. That's not to say I won't play them in multimedia online games. MMORPGs are some of the things that I love the most about being on PC. But having said that, I will not record that type of content. Make sure that it has, like in this case, a standalone single player, even if it's just like the tutorial for like a couple of hours. So like I can give you a brief synopsis of what I feel about the mechanics of the game, the graphics of the game, stuff like that. Okay. But again, my tastes are varied, and to exemplify this some more, we can go to my wish list on the store page to show you some examples of games that I've highlighted that I might be interested in purchasing here in the future. We have a ridiculous list here, of course. Some that have probably fallen along the way. Age of Empires 4 is coming out. I have Age of Empires 3. Haven't even showed you any of that content, but that's a fun game, and this one is promising, if it does look a little cartoony right now. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, of course, going to do that. Of course, I have plenty of other games that are platformers or single player shooter games, the first person, third person type stuff. I'll have games that have like varied stories to them, survival horror games, ones that to you might be boring, and again, don't recommend them or don't watch that content. But for example, like Agatha Christie, the ABC Murders, I have Sherlock Holmes. There's a series of those games out here, like Crimes and Punishment, Sherlock Holmes, The Testament of Sherlock Holmes. And again, those are kind of point click kind of games, but I love them for the stories and the interesting feel to them. Survival games, ones where you build your town up, some that you can fight in, some that you can't. Games where your main character has like superpowers or magic. I'm a big fan of all that sci-fi shit, cyborg games and stuff of that nature. So again, there's a laundry list of stuff that I could get into. Uh, Outside of the MMORPG that I said I won't do, at least as far as make recordings of other people playing. The only other one that I would suggest you don't suggest to me are games like most recent one that came up on my freaking queue was something called Honey Pop 2. It's basically a sex simulator or a dating simulator, I think is generously what they categorize themselves as, but it's basically cartoon porn. I'm not gonna do that. And while I'm not saying that it's something that you should feel bad about, if you're interested, feel free to play whatever game you want to play. But I'm not gonna put it on this channel. And the reason I'm not going to put it on this channel is not because I'm Mr. Perfect or anything. I curse all the damn time. This is definitely not a family-friendly channel in any stretch of the imagination. You shouldn't be watching this, quite frankly, at work unless you got headphones in. So that's fine. I'm not worried about that. It's just not my scene, man. Just do what you want, and that's fine. If you suggest that stuff, know that I'm basically going to ignore the suggestion. As far as other games are concerned, though, if I don't buy it, don't take it as a personal slight. It could be because I've just bought too many games recently and I'm starting to lose money. So I'm not about to drop like $50 every goddamn weekend just because you guys said, hey, buy this one, hey, buy that one, and then buy this one so I don't have to. Yeah, eventually I'm going to get to the point where I'm running out of cash. But again, there's a variety of games that I like, styles that I'm into, sci-fi, futuristic, prehistoric, medieval. There's just like no wrong answer for most of the stuff that I do. And again, there's some that are just so goddamn funny and cartoony that just reminds me of when I grew up being a kid. There's other ones that are D&D-esque, again, Scholastic Chronicles Magister, that I'm a big fan of the gameplay I've seen so far, and I could get into playing some of these. Notice that I haven't been playing Baldur's Gate 3 anymore, and it's not to say that it's boring or that I'm done with it. It is early release, early access, and as such, I realize it's such a big game and clearly going to be awesome. I'd rather A, it be polished off, and B, be finished, so that when I do play it as a LP, a Let's Play, then I'll actually not spoil it for myself, because I was really getting heavy into it, even though it's like the first 20 hours of the game. I was getting to the point where I'm like, you know what, I'm kind of ruining the story for myself when I finally do an LP. And the reason that's important to me is because when I start doing those, my enthusiasm for shit that I've already seen, we do this, I'm gonna click there, and it comes across. I mean, it's obvious that I don't want to do the tutorial basically anymore in Pathfinder Kingmaker. So I'm afraid when people see that, they're like, well, he must not really like this game. No, I love the game. I don't give a fuck about the tutorial anymore. Get me out of this shit. I want to be level 2, damn it. So it's kind of the same thing. I don't want that to impede my ability to convey how important this game is and how interesting and fun the game is. Again, there's some decent shooters that I would love to get into. Doom, I'm a big fan of Doom in the past, and Doom Eternal would be a nice graphically intensive one for this new rig that I have. Of course, love myself some Resident Evil. It's how I got into PlayStation in the first place. When I bought my first PlayStation, it was because of Resident Evil, not the tutorial, what do you call it, the prequel disc that they give you at the store, that they'll play it and let you play like the first 5 minutes of the game, and I was hooked. And that's why I bought my first PlayStation, was because of that little snippet of Resident Evil. I'm like, wow, these graphics are shit, but man, this looks awesome. So that's when I got it when I was a kid. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm into. Again, there's survival games, building games, anything like that is totally fun for me. Again, if it's single player, try not to give me stuff like, I think Rust is one of those where it's multiplayer, yeah. But I think you can play enough of it single player or solo where I'm not worried about people fucking me over or ruining the experience. So feel free to suggest stuff as my advice to you guys. And again, don't take it personal if I don't take it or respond to your requests, other than I may just flag it like I have done in here, where I highlighted it in my wish list or when it comes on sale or something like that. Like you can see right now, Medium is actually 20% off for $40. That might be something worth playing. Again, you guys need to tell me, what would you like to see, basically, is what I'm asking you. So let's talk about what we can do now. Why this is such an important thing to me is because of the new system that I bought. Now, this is the Micro Center webpage where I'm at, or near where I'm at. And this is to show you that a lot of these have been sold out. Okay? And one of the reasons is because I bought one. But this is the gaming systems that they have, and there's a laundry list of them. I have them highlighted from cheapest or most expensive to cheapest, because most of expensive is where I end up landing. Just to show you some of the choices that I had in the store that I shop at. I was looking for something in the 3000 series of the RTX card. So 3060, 3060 Ti, 3070, 3080, God forbid a 3090 if I could afford it. And there was one there. Of course, it sold out retardedly fast. And it wasn't exactly a rig that I would have thought was cool anyway. So fuck them, I don't care. But I ended up with this guy. We'll show you that here in a second. But the other alternative was this one. And of course, making my own computer. For those of you that are snobs and are like, well, you should have made your own. Yes, I should have. And I would have if they had graphics card the day I went there. I checked their webpage. I saw that they had cards going to be available that morning. I'm like, fuck yeah. And I drove straight the fuck out there. And I was there before the store was supposed to open. For whatever reason, they were open early. I don't know why. I'm assuming that's a common thing for them when they get graphics cards in. Went right to the graphics card area. There was only one graphics card available on the thing. And it was one of the, I want to say, Radeon graphics cards, and I don't know enough about them to know what I wanted. So I looked at it and said, moving on. And there was another lady that was there that she was looking for a graphics card as well. So the one that was on the shelf, she may have wanted, and I didn't want to be the one to steal it from her, especially if I didn't know if it was any good. So I didn't, because I could have totally looked up on my phone. Hey, is this a good graphics card? No. Okay. But I knew that they also had pre-builts, and I'm like, well, if I can't find a graphics card, I brought enough cash out with me. I'm like, fuck it, I'll buy one of these pre-builts. And my choices were, the top three was this guy here. I'm a fan of Intel. For those of you that don't know, and again, the Radeon was not my favorite. I prefer the NVIDIA graphics cards because I use GeForce Experience to update my drivers as well as for recording, for those of you that don't know. So that's why I wanted to keep to that. So I knew enough about the 3060s, 3070s, 3080s, and 3090s to know roughly which one was good, great, the best. Obviously, the bigger the number is usually the way to go. Not always, but usually. But I was looking at this 3070 here for $2,200. Let's just round it up. We'll say $2,200 for this one. Was underwhelming for what it was providing. That 1 terabyte and all this other stuff is more than enough to do what I needed to, but it would definitely need to be upgraded. And I'm like, eh. Then I looked at this guy and I'm like, wow, 2 terabytes of SSD, and this is the NVMe SSD, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like the one that looks like a stick of gum. Very fast, very cool, and I know all that because I got this one, and it has the same thing, but only 1 terabyte. So this one and this one, there's direct comparisons, quite frankly. It's almost the same everything, just different CPU, different graphics card. 3070 versus the 3080, the i7 CPU versus the i9, but basically the same. Well, actually, this one's a higher generation, and then you notice that it's 11th gen versus 10th gen. But again, apples to apples comparison, $300 difference. I'm like, I was leaning for this one. I was actually more leaning to this guy. And again, I don't care about AMD, the Ryzen chips. I knew this was a good chip. I don't think that would have impacted my GeForce experience because, again, I still have the NVIDIA GeForce RTX in here, the 3070. But the choice then was between this one and this one. Better graphics card, less storage, versus better storage, slightly worse graphics card. And I don't want to say worse because it's far from being a piece of shit. But it was only $100 difference. And I'm like, I got the cash. Fuck it. And I bought this guy. So this is the one we bought. This guy here, the PowerSpec G467. Again, about $2,700 after taxes. Solid state drive is the NVMe. Again, the one that looks like a stick of gum. Very impressive for the amount of speed that this fucker has. It's got, for the motherboard, the Asus ROG Strix Z490E gaming motherboard. Just the worst of that series, which is to say just the cheapest. Doesn't mean it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's quite good from what reviews I had seen online. The thing that would worry me about this system currently is twofold. One, the storage. 1 terabyte is just not enough, but I will work around for that. 2 is the power supply. Power supply is fine for right now. I'm probably going to want to upgrade it, and I'm probably going to want to make it modular because I don't have a modular one right now. So I got all the fucking Ketchman mustard cables underneath the fucking thing right next to the shroud for the power supply. Fucking pain in the ass. And I don't have, for whatever reason, in the power supply that I have, any SATA cables. I didn't even know that was a fucking thing. And I'm like, well, I'll just buy some. I have the ones that the 4 pins with the Molex, I think is what they call those. And I'm like, can these be upgraded to SATA? And I looked online. They say you can, but they suggest you don't because apparently it's a different amount of power or wattage or whatever that would go through those cables, and it would give enough juice to maybe run some of the SATA stuff that you would do, but it would be inferior and be a bad idea. So I was looking at that going, that's going to be something that we upgrade in the future. The storage, the reason I mentioned the storage and I have a workaround for this is I was going to install my SSD drives that I have in the old monster behind me over here, because I have a 0.5 terabyte and a 1/4 terabyte roughly SSD on that system, as well as a 1 terabyte hard drive. So I could keep everything on the 1 terabyte hard drive, since it's going to be a standalone computer anyway, and I don't give no fucks about the speed on that monster. And I could take those 2 SSD drives and plug it into this fucker, was the idea. Well, turns out that's when I found out 2 things. One, I don't have any SATA cables on the power supply to power the fucker. And then the other is I don't have any SATA ports on the board to plug the bastard into. Which seems weird, right? Shouldn't that be a thing? Like, a motherboard should have at least one, if not, according to what I was seeing online, 3 of the fuckers. And it looks like they're just missing. Now, having said that, where they would be on the motherboard would be right about where the graphics card is. So it's entirely possible that big monster of a graphics card is hiding it from me, and I don't feel comfortable enough yet to fucking unplug that fucking thing to look behind it. So I'm like, fuck it. Eventually, though, I do have another slot on that motherboard, and it is true, and I've checked it, because I can't see it, that there's another NVMe slot. Now, the one that they have it in is, again, right by the motherboard, and that's the one you're supposed to put your first NVMe SSD slot in, and that's because it's closer to the chipset or whatever. The other one's farther away, and that will slow down the speeds, but still, it's fucking retardedly fast anyway, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. So if I do want to upgrade it, that's another option. But that's when it occurred to me, well, my graphics card is pooping out on the old monster. It's still a good system. I mean, I can still see stuff. I can still plug it into my old TV monitor and still see stuff and play games and whatever, but it's starting to lag, hence the new system. So why not record on the new system, which is what I'm doing right now, and then take the file with the flash drive over to the standalone and process it, because it has all my old settings and savings for, what I would put for a YouTube channel, and I can process it there. Once it's done and doing its editing and everything, I can come back to this monster, just let that thing churn in the background, come back to this monster, and continue either playing some more or recording some more, and therefore the idea is I will give you guys more videos. So hopefully this makes sense for why I'm doing what I'm doing. For apples to apples comparison compared to my old system, though, this 10th generation i9, awesome CPU compared to what I had in the monster behind me. It was an i7, I want to say 9th gen, so I want to say it was a 9700. It wasn't even K or KF, so there was no integrated graphics to it. There was no there was integrated graphics, but there's no overclocking. And I'm like, I don't particularly care. I mean, it's not that it was hindering me, really, that I could tell. The thing that was hindering me was the graphics card. Compared to the 3080 10 gigabytes that you're seeing here, the old dinosaur has a 1060, which is not the worst graphics card ever. Matter of fact, according to the Steam webpage, for a number of people that are using their PCs to play games, the most common graphics card out there, still to this day, is the 1060. Having said that, that's probably the 1060 6 gigabyte. I have a 1063, and I didn't know what that meant back in the day. Well, now I do. So to explain the 10 gigabyte versus 3 gigabyte, let's just talk about it in thousands. So 10,000 versus 3,000, that's the virtual RAM, the VRAM you may hear people talk about. So to explain what this does, briefly, because I'm not a computer whiz, but from what I've been seeing, when you play a game, the computer will say, or the game will say, hey, we're going to be uploading all these cool graphics, what a tree looks like, all the leaves on the tree look like, what a blade of grass on the ground looks like, the dirt patch, and all the fucking scenery that you're seeing on your monitor, right? So it tries to load it into the virtual RAM, the VRAM, which is this 10,000 or 3,000, like on my old machine. It can fill it as much as it can fill it, and much as of course it needs. So if it needs only 2,000 on my old system would be more than enough, because I have 3,000 on it. What happens is it loads it up into that for a reason. The reason is this: as you're running through the jungle or the forest or the dungeon or whatever, as stuff populates on your screen to show up and show you the trees and everything else that you're looking at visually, if it's on the VRAM, it's quick, because it has instant access to it. Like, oh, we're going to know what this tree and this leaf, this everything looks like. We can reassemble it on your screen quickly. If you're exceeding, or if the game's needs exceeds the VRAM you have. Let's say it needs 4,000. My old system has 3,000. It can't get better than that. I have 3,000. That's it. That's my cap. So it'll be maxed out. Having said that, uh, the way you would notice it, from what I've been told, is you'll see like a tree will like appear suddenly. You're like, where the fuck that just come from? Like just popped into view, where it was should have been far away, where it like scrolls in and you seamlessly see it transition into, oh, I see that tree now. No, and then suddenly you get close and like boom, there's another thing in your fucking way. It's because the computer says, oh, I don't have this in VRAM. I have to find it somewhere else on the system, and that takes time. So if you see stuttering and herky jerkiness, that's part of the reason. Not one only reason, but part of the reason that the VRAM is important. Okay, so that was hindering me for gameplay. I knew this in the back of my head, but I was convincing myself, oh, maybe it's just because it's a new game and they haven't like tweaked it out yet. So I just made it. It's them, not me. No, it was definitely me, not them. So this system should be able to handle stuff like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, maybe even Crysis. It's a running joke from what I hear, but maybe not the remastered version of it. But enough to be 60 frames per second or better, and a good 1080p, 1440p if I can, 4K for some of the games. And I could definitely have some fun. So I think that I'll be fine. The 10,000 is more than enough from what I've been seeing online. People have been touting the fact that 12,000 or better would be the way to go, and they think that the 3080 was a mistake because there's 3070s out there that have 12. And they're like, why the fuck would you go in reverse? Well, there's reasons. Cost is one. But the other is 10's more than enough in many instances for the current games anyway. And going back to my original analysis, the 10,000 versus the 3,000, if your computer or your game says, give me all that 10,000, and you see that it's using all 10,000, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be hindered. It's a bucket. Think of it that way. The game is going to say, hey, here's a bucket, let's fill it. They will try its best to fill it, and if they can, they will. So it gets up to that 10,000, you may not see stuttering, because some of that shit that's in that 10,000 could be like the random bird that flies through the sky like once in a blue moon. So who gives a shit that if it takes a little longer to load that one up, because you're probably not even going to notice it. So again, don't worry if you're getting to your cap so much. Just notice if your gameplay seems funny, it doesn't seem seamless, seems stuttery. That's when you have a problem, whether it's either your CPU or your GPU or your memory. And the memory on this monster, the 32 gigabytes of RAM, should be more than what I fucking need. Relatively quick, very happy with the DDR4. And a nice SSD for the NVMe as well, nice motherboard. This should be a baller system for what I want to do. Okay, so with all that bragging aside and all the money that I've wasted to buy it, I think we should be fine. I hope you guys take this to heart. Tell me what you want to see. I mean, I'm still doing the Pathfinder Kingmaker videos. I just need to download my mods again. I tried to transfer them over. It didn't work. So I'm just going to have to go back to the Nexus and just install everything. And the good news is I'll be able to reinstall the shit that I want this time. But point is, go with my advice. Post down below. Tell me what you'd want to see, what kind of content you want to see, and on that, I am well aware of my ability to talk for hours at a time. So I know that's not everybody's thing. People were suggesting that I either A, truncate my videos, or B, that I put like bulleted lists or whatever down below, like underneath the timestamps, I should think what they call them, which I will try eventually to figure out, but I'm not in any hurry for that. So what I'm thinking of doing is this in the future: 2 videos for the same content as far as build videos. One, let's say 10 minutes or less video where I just hammer home, this is the build, this is how you make it, these are the steps, done, good, fuck off. Then the second video will be exactly the same thing, except my usual pattern of, this is why you want this is why this is important, this is how you'd play it, this is how he's going to feel, this is the spells you're going to want, etc. and so forth. So the long form versus the short form, if you will. So between those two, hopefully that will scratch everybody's itch. If you have other suggestions, again, this is the place to put them. Put it down below. Tell me what you want to see. Tell me the games you want to see. If you think I'm doing great, say so. If you think I suck, also say so. Try to be a little respectful about it, but by and large, all comments that are at least helpful, I find it helpful. So post that down below. But with that, I think that says everything I wanted to say today. And again, as an apology for the fact that I haven't been giving you your builds, they are coming. I'm not gone. They will be there. But with that, my name is Brother Mutant. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell your friends about this channel if you think they'd be interested. And with that, I'll see you guys soon.